Welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes with DailyStraits.com. Our guest today is Steve Vlok, the founder and CEO of Celo. Steve is an Auckland-based entrepreneur who founded Celo in 2014. For those who are not in the know, Celo is a collaboration tool that provides secure communication, collaboration, and is a community platform created specifically for people in the healthcare industry. In other words, Celo's secure app makes it easier for those in the industry to communicate, resulting in better patient care. So today we're going to talk to Steve, who happens to be a former engineer, and ask him why he decided to leave his engineering career and venture out into the healthcare business. Hi, Steve. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, June. Thanks very much for having me on the show. Yeah, really good. Thanks. And you?
I'm great. So let's dive right into the questions. So, Steve, it looks like a Celo is something like a Slack or a WhatsApp for the healthcare industry. So what was the idea that mooted the formation of the company way back in 2014?
Yeah, so I guess like all good stories, it started with a girl. So yeah, if I go back to 2014, my girlfriend at the time, now actually my wife, and we'll get to that later, was a junior doctor and working at a very busy hospital. And communication in a busy hospital is extremely important. And that hospital, like many other hospitals across the world, don't have the best communication tools available. They're still stuck in, sometimes I call it the dark ages. They use pages, they use a range of other integrated systems. And so a lot of the docs turn to tools like texting and WhatsApp to communicate with each other. Usually ask questions or seek advice, sometimes with a photo. Not because they are knowingly trying to breach patient privacy or anything like that, but mainly because other tools didn't exist at the time, and so they turned to things that they're already using in their own personal lives.
Alrighty. So okay, so you got the idea from that, and then how did you go about producing the product? Like employing people? Did you do a test or something? Usually, normally people test the product out before they go full-fledged. What was your approach?
If I go back to 2014, I was still at university. I was in my last year of university at an engineering school, doing chemical and process engineering. And I didn't know a whole lot then, to be honest. And so naively at the time, I thought, how hard could it be to create a healthcare alternative or healthcare specific version of WhatsApp? Not really knowing what the journey that lay ahead of me, right? And because we were, I guess, not funded and didn't have a huge amount of resource available, yes, we had to do a proof of concept first, to test the waters and work out, okay, is this something that people will be open to and want to use? And that's exactly what we did. So on the side as I was working and finishing uni, and I went and worked as an engineer, for the first 2.5, almost 3 years, I built a proof of concept on the side, completely self-funded. And that was the first MVP of the product.
So who did you get, like tech? Did you do it yourself or did you employ someone overseas?
Yeah, a little bit of a combination. So I did all the initial design work and workflows and sort of the initial feature set myself with a little bit of help from family and friends. And then in terms of implementing the first Android and iOS app, we got some help offshore to do that with some outsourced engineers. And that was really good. It was pretty challenging to work across, borders, different time zones and stuff. And they really did build exactly to the scope. But yeah, it was interesting, and we didn't really have another choice. It was all we had at the time.
All right. So were you doing this alone, or did you partner up with your wife now, your then girlfriend, now wife?
Yeah, so we partnered up together and really tackled it together head on. And to be honest, that was one of the really successful parts of making sure we actually solved their problems initially, because she was the end user. And so if I think about some of the really early initial departments we got onto the platform, they were actually in her hospital, and they were the sort of initial users that could try and test the product, and give us some of that really important early feedback.
Okay, so she tested it, the product. She asked her friends, her doctor friends, to download it and try it, right? Is that her job, or were
Yeah,
you?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was sort of she was the first person to tell us when things didn't go right and had all the good ideas to solve them.
Alrighty. And so it is so do you have other co-founders, or it's just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
Alrighty. And so how has it been like when did it start exactly? Like when was the finished product up? Was it 2014 or a couple of years after that?
So if I think about when I went full time on it, it wasn't until the end of 2016. So the first few years was really just getting a proof of concept going, working on it as we could on the side, and getting that sort of initial feedback. And in terms of the timing too, the market wasn't really quite ready for it yet. Like especially in this region of the world, it was still educating people that actually these other tools that they're using are not purpose built for health. There's some considerations that they need to think about. And while we were working on our tool, a lot of this became more and more, um, you know, focused on or brought to light by a lot of the legislation changes around privacy, and the timing became a lot better towards the end of 2016.
Okay. So what made you want to decide to leave your full-time job and go on this full-time? Was it because it was showing promise, as in like yeah, money, or you felt like, this had potential to go far?
Um, Probably going back a little bit further, I've always wanted to do my own thing. So, probably been a little bit of an entrepreneur at heart. High school, used to buy and sell cars, and um, all my other friends would always have a summer job, and me and my younger brother always sort of did our own thing. So, I've always been entrepreneurial at heart, and so when an opportunity to solve a real problem that didn't necessarily just have a monetary return or a commercial return, actually solved a real problem and could improve the way healthcare was delivered. Yeah, kind of probably didn't give it too much thought, to be honest. I just dove right in and decided to take it in my stride and do as best as we could.
Were you married by then? Like, or
No, 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 we weren't. That wasn't until end of 2019.
so when you told your partner, now wife, and you're also business partner, that you wanted to quit your full-time job to do this, what did she say?
Oh, she was awesome, super supportive. Yeah, wouldn't be able to do it without that attitude, which is yeah, super super helpful, and probably the only people that to convince that it was still a good idea were my parents. But I think that's probably pretty normal.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm interested in the name Celo. It's like cello, the music instrument. So what's the story behind that? Why did you choose that name?
So we wanted to have a name that was pretty easy to say. Think about someone saying, "Oh, please Facebook me or WhatsApp me." We wanted to have a name that could be used as in a sentence. Please Celo me. And that was kind of a key part of the naming. But it also had to mean something. So Celo in Latin means keep secret or keep hidden, which is a really key part of our app being to keep patient information safe.
Okay. So okay, now let's get a lowdown on how the app works. So I downloaded the app yesterday, but it looks like it's just specifically for healthcare workers, because you can't sign up if you're not a worker, right? Am I right?
Yeah, so probably worth diving a little bit deeper into, who's the app for and what does it give them in terms of value. So Celo is for anybody involved in the care of a patient. So be it a really busy surgeon in a hospital or a community worker out in the community looking after someone in their home. As long as you're involved in the care of the patient, Celo is for you. When you sign up, there's a few key differences to just signing up, to Facebook or to WhatsApp or some of these consumer tools. First one is on WhatsApp, anyone can sign up with a phone number, and that means that when I message you, I don't know I'm necessarily messaging you. There's that inherent level of trust that's just not there. On Celo, we look at three main things for trust. We verify identity, we verify profession, and we also verify workplace. And that means you know who you're talking to is who they say they are, which is particularly important when sharing sensitive patient information to make clinical decisions or seek advice. Um, in terms of how it works, and this is the part that's a lot simpler to explain, it's just like using WhatsApp once you're in your network. So one-on-one chat, group messages, all the things that people are used to on a consumer tool, which means there's no training. But with a few key differences in terms of being a healthcare specific tool. So we have our secure library, which is where we keep clinical photos separate from our personal phone galleries. We have a concept of going offline or marking yourself as unavailable, which is a really good well-being tool to separate work from personal, in terms of if you're not at work, to have that rest and not be bothered when in terms of being mixed up with your personal chats and WhatsApp. And then we also have what we call our verified healthcare network. So that's where you can search the Celo network for any other verified health workers that you want to connect with and involve in the care of the patient. So think about it being a tool that's not just restricted to your own organization. You can talk across organizations, you can talk across countries, and you can build multiple teams all at once, so that you can look after a lot of your different patients across a lot of the different areas that you may work.
So it's free to download?
Yes, yeah, it is.
All right. Okay, and what kind of phones is it compatible with? All smartphones only? From what phone to like iOS 6? Is that okay, or do you need a really
Yes.
hi-fi?
Yeah, so it's pretty much in line with the same compatibility as all the major tools like Facebook and WhatsApp and Slack. So we're definitely on just industry standard in terms of what we're compatible with. We're also device agnostic, so Android, iOS. We're also available on web. So anyone that has access to the internet can pretty much use Zillow.
Okay, so tell me about how's the business been so far? You started as a two-person business, and then what is the current staff count take?
So we're just below 20 people at the moment. Mix of full time and part time, and then we've got a few partners as well in different regions. Um, we're a pretty nimble small business still, and that's because we're pretty efficient in the way that we run our product. It's certainly a product led strategy. Most of our team at this point are developers, and product people building a really product first model. So we rely on people to have a really good experience on the product, and then refer or tell their friends or their colleagues about it, and that's where most of our growth comes from.
Okay, so I was wondering, is this only available, the usage, right? Is it heavily used in New Zealand only?
So up until January this year, we were New Zealand and Australia only, and that was sort of our local environment where we were testing the market, getting a lot of feedback in real time, and making sure that we had a product that had a really good market fit. Um, at the start of this year, we launched into the UK, also Ireland, Switzerland, and South Africa, and that was really to spread our wings quickly and get into some bigger markets where there was a need for the product. Since that launch, we've doubled our user numbers and tripled our traffic. So it really
All right.
showed that out of New Zealand and Australia is really important to us as a business.
So how did you launch in these markets? Like, how do doctors and healthcare workers find you?
Yeah, so obviously with the pandemic, it's been different to how we probably would have done it pre-pandemic in terms of launch. Like I'd always envisaged going over, getting on a plane and setting up on foot and building relationships and establishing ourselves with a local presence. And, you know, for perhaps it was a silver lining. We weren't able to do that. And so we had a much more remote approach to it, and we used a combination of partners, digital marketing, and people that we already knew on the ground to spread the word and start to make people aware of the tool. In the UK market, we had quite an aggressive digital marketing approach, which was aimed specifically at healthcare workers to download the app and try it. And what we found in that market is that certain community care organizations and hospital departments really took up the product quickly, mainly off the back of it being much more of a problem aware market. So, for example, in the UK, the NHS, which is the National Health Service there, banned the use of consumer tools like WhatsApp in 2020. And so that market for us, they know that using WhatsApp and these other tools is a problem. So when they're presented with a solution like Celo and it works for them and it's just as easy to use, the growth is quite easy.
All right. So how did you target this digital marketing for healthcare workers? Was it specifically skewed on Facebook marketing, or did you go on, I don't know, how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that simple. So I've got to say it's a very difficult cohort to target. Um, and Facebook, although a really great advertising tool, wasn't super effective at targeting these particular or specific types of users. So we used a combination of methods. The other thing we found really worked for us was to generate useful articles or industry specific resources that people could align themselves with or find useful. So Celo is a subject matter expert in healthcare communication, talking about how do they make the communication in their teams more efficient. Is something that people can really relate to, as opposed to us just saying, here, try our really cool new app and and just get started on it. So it's providing value before just providing the value of the tool.
All right. So why was the WhatsApp thing an issue? Was it because of the um, all the, I don't know, attacks, cyber attacks, and privacy issues? Is that reason?
So if we go back to the fundamentals of WhatsApp is a social tool. It's aimed at keeping in touch with your friends and family, and it's not built for healthcare communication. So despite being end-to-end encrypted, it only looks after the data from person A to person B, and that's traditionally stopping a man-in-the-middle attack. So if someone grabs or intercepts the traffic in the middle, all of that's not going to mean much because it's all unreadable. However, when the information lands at the recipient's device, it's not encrypted at that point. It's unencrypted by the WhatsApp app at that point. It's readable, and then it's stored in plain format or plain text on the device, including images. So, for example, lose your phone in the back of an Uber or something, and someone picks it up. It's very easy to get your hands on the clinical photos or the clinical information in the WhatsApp app. Second part is who are you talking to? So in WhatsApp, all you need is a phone number, right? So at the beginning, I talked about easily being able to send something to the wrong person by mistake by either adding a digit or dropping a digit by mistake. And the other part too is think about, if you get a new phone number, that old phone number that might have been in another WhatsApp group will continue to receive the WhatsApp group messages in that group that it might have been part of in the past. And so Celo solves that by making sure we give trust to the accounts and the people that you're talking to. And it also solves it by looking after encryption at the device level. So in that scenario where you lose a phone in an Uber or something, it doesn't matter that the device has been lost.
Okay, great. Tell me about your competitors. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, heaps, to be honest. Everyone's trying to improve, what seems like everyone's trying to improve communication health, which, some might think, oh, damn, it sucks to have heaps of competitors. But we found that it's actually been really good because everyone's identified communication in healthcare is really inefficient. In fact, it's one of the leading causes of medical error. And everyone's solving the problem in a little bit of a different way. So our view on it is simple is really powerful, and solving real problems that our healthcare users face is what we're focused on. So how do we make their lives easier? How do we make their communication better? How do we make their communication richer? And also making sure that everyone has access to it. So for example, you don't just want a communication tool that's rolled out within your fancy hospital in a big city and you can only use it in your hospital, because most of the time these workers move across a lot of different organizations. They wear many hats, or they're part of many care teams. And with Celo, they can make sure they're in contact with all those care teams at once, while using a really easy but also compliant tool.
Okay. Tell me about you started business in 2016, end of 2016 till now. What are the sort of downloads that you've had?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're not disclosing any of our downloads or revenue or anything like that. But as I mentioned before, even just the start of this year, we've seen our traffic triple and our user numbers double. So really, we've only just started to scale over the last 12 to 18 months. And that's really been around finding the really good product market fit and having a product that's super stable, reliable, and easy to use. And people have started to talk about it.
Okay, so what about, from 2014 to 2016, how much was the investment that you you poured in with your then girlfriend to start the app?
Yeah, so at the very start, I mean, it was really done on a shoestring. Like looking back, I don't know the exact figures, but I was on a graduate salary, and I think at the time, graduate engineering graduates would have probably been on. I think I may have earned like 50,000 a year or something. I'd say at least half of that salary went into Celo over that time. But it wasn't a huge amount, right? Like it was really trying to do what we could with super low budget. And to be honest, that was really important. We didn't really need to spend more than that to get an initial proof of concept.
And since then, have you gone and pitched the idea at any kind of like tech, Blackbird Ventures or anybody to get extra money funding to grow the app, or is it been self-funded till today?
So most of our investment has been through, in New Zealand, we do have angel investors, and we've got, there's sort of K1W1 and NZ Growth Capital Partners are investors in Celo as well. But to be honest, they sort of feel like a family and friends round. Like it's been a really close knit round, all seed at this point, and really focus on finding our product market fit. So we haven't gone out and done an institutional round yet. That will come in time. Like we're really looking at how can we aggressively expand. For example, we've just become US compliant. So we've gone through HIPAA and the High Tech Act, which are the two key healthcare legislations to launch in the US, and we've just become compliant. So the next journey for us is to enter the US market, and of course that requires some additional capital.
And you will go and look for angel investors to help you, or you find on your own?
We probably will do a round, yes.
Awesome. Okay, what are some of your, yeah, you just mentioned US, but what other expansion plans do you have for this year?
Yeah, so at the moment, the main plan for this year in terms of expansion is focused on US entry. And we're extremely, focused just on that. But at the same time, we're also, we're pretty new to the UK. We launched in Ireland. We also launched in Switzerland and South Africa at the start of the year. So there's a lot of work to be done in those markets. Like we're pretty new to those markets too, which are running in parallel. So don't have any like specific plans to enter any other countries during that time. But the free version of Celo is available in most regions.
What do you US is going to be very hard because do you have a partner there? Like a business partner that you're partnering with, or how are you going to do it during COVID times?
Yeah, so one of our investors and founding shareholders is based in Seattle. And so he's kind of our go-to man on the ground there, which is, super helpful. Gets a lot of the land on the ground and can meet and greet people on the ground. But to be honest, a lot of our sales are not done face to face anymore. They're through inbounds generated through digital marketing, or they're through outbounds. And that's a really key part of our strategy, particularly when it comes to selling B2B, and our target B2B audience is sort of mid-tier. But most of our sales or our user acquisition is done direct to the clinician. So doctors getting excited about having a better way to communicate and simply downloading our app.
Okay, so tell me, how does the company, in particular the app, monetize?
Yeah, so we've got two offerings. We've got Celo, which is just free and anyone can download it. And then we've got Celo Enterprise. Celo Enterprise is a SaaS license, so we charge a monthly license fee per month per user. And that's normally aimed at a bigger size healthcare organization that wants a little bit more control around how they use Celo, and also how they integrate into their existing systems. So for example, with Celo Enterprise, as a healthcare worker in a hospital, you can take a picture in the Celo app, add some patient details to it, and then safely push it into the local clinical, electronic clinical record, so that there's one source of truth. And that integration is a license fee.
Okay, so it's like a subscription fee, right?
Exactly.
Alrighty, and that is all the time that we have for today. We have just been speaking to Steve Vlok, the CEO and founder of Celo.
Thanks very much, June.
Thank you. Okay, the pleasure is all ours. Be sure to catch another one of our podcast interviews next week, where we feature another awesome entrepreneur from across the Tasman. Thank you.